Well, this is just a hell of a good way to go, right? You
I'm
guys still,
updating the other chat.
yeah, update the other chat. We're getting it fixed out here. I don't know what happened, but it seemed to have created, oh, now it's running. It seems to have created two shows for some reason, or I did it or something. But anyway, that happens. Okay. Are we live everywhere, guys? We are live on DLive. That's cool. We are live on Rockfin. And we are live on YouTube, I think. Where is
We have 2 different YouTube streams going.
You have 2 YouTube streams going.
Yes, 54 on one and 35 on another 2 minutes ago and less than a minute ago.
Okay, well, it says we are live right now. Okay, we are live. And okay, no, we're live. Boy, this is really good, guys. What a complete technical fail on this one I did today. Anyway, I think we're live everywhere. If not, I'm sure somebody will let me know, and hopefully we will not have any more technical issues. Holy Toledo. All right, so welcome to Globebuster.
Bob.
I'm sorry, say again?
You've been hanging around too many of us in Iron Rail Media. I think it's wearing off on you.
No, I think it's because of Jeran and Mr. Technical Difficulty himself. I got to blame it on him. It's his fault. Not you, Jeran, the other Jeran. My son Jeran's going, what did I do? That's the problem with having a son with the same name as your partner. But, oh, well. All right, guys. Anyway, I am, of course, Bob, your host. And the title of the show today is Apocalypse Now. Okay, so why did I name it Apocalypse Now? Normally, the definition, of course, for apocalypse and what most people relate to the word as is the complete final destruction of the world as described in the biblical book of Revelation. Like the bells ringing is supposed to usher in the apocalypse, or an event involving destruction or damage in an awesome or catastrophic scale. Well, that may happen, but that's not where we're going today. Today, the apocalypse now is more about the Greek word, which means revelation, or an unveiling or unfolding of things not previously known, and which could not be known apart from the unveiling. So that's kind of something that I know a lot of the truthers in this community are definitely aware of that, because there's, well, we're into that. You know how it goes. So anyway, I have a pretty good staff with me today, and we're going to be talking about some new material that came out, and hopefully I will get my act together and get back on track. But first, let's go ahead and introduce the panel. First up, we have my wife, Cami, Aisling717. How you doing, Cami?
Doing really good. As you know, we've had a little bit of a crazy fun week. My sister-in-law just left the house a little bit ago, but keeping busy and just trying to catch up with everything in the background. But doing really good overall.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, and next up we have Mr. Zach Zabala, and or sometimes known as Good Times for All, or if you prefer, that's how it's done. How you doing, Zach?
Hey, Bob. Doing good. Thanks for having me again, man. Really enjoying these.
Excellent. No problem. And we also have with us John the Morgile. How you doing today, John?
I am doing just fine, Bob. Thanks for asking. A pleasure to be here. A pleasure to be here with the panel, and looking forward to yet another great show.
Excellent. And we also have with us Mr. John Savage today. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing well, Bob. I'm doing well. I'd say hello to everyone on the thing, but we've got a full house here, and yeah, let's get on with the shows. Sounds interesting.
Okay, excellent. And last but certainly not least, we have LC King or Lucas King. How you doing today, Lucas?
I'm doing well, thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Okay, cool. All right, now we got the panel. Boy, we actually got quite a few people showing up for this today. That's amazing because I wasn't sure who all was going to be coming on, especially with Austin going, and I just wanted to kind of give a hat tip. What you're seeing right now on the right screen, and you guys should be seeing it also, is Austin, and Austin is at the White House in Washington, D.C. And if you have not been watching him up until now, holy Toledo, he is absolutely just knocking it dead out there. He had a whole bunch of people there, and he was just, it was just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Did you see any of it, Zach? Oops, are you there, Zach?
Zach must be on mute.
Oh, sorry guys, my muted my headset on accident. Yeah, Austin was just killing it today. He is really good at this. He is like he was meant to do this stuff. I mean, just the way he doesn't focus on anything that the crowd's really saying, and the way he can speak. He speaks so elegantly, but he can do it so quickly, like a rapper almost. Yeah, I mean, Austin was made to do this stuff, I think. Really.
Yeah, he really
I
was.
Caught his 3-hour live stream at the, what's that building? And the Big Needle. I know America so well.
The Big Needle?
Oh, that's the Washington Monument.
Oh,
Washington Monument. That's the one with the Baphomet president in it. Yeah. No, I saw them on that. It was really good. But he's about the only guy I can't watch on more than 1 time speed. Everyone else, everything else, I listen to at least 1.5, even 2 times speed. But Austin is just so, like you say, eloquent and banging the truth out. It's unbelievable. Really good.
Yeah, he can really talk fast too. So, but yeah, he was just absolutely doing an amazing job. I was sitting there getting ready for the show, and I was listening to him, and it was just like, it's just like something took over, and he just absolutely hammered it. And he had the crowd into it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on his channel right now. Of course, it's live. We're watching it live right now. And so I would definitely suggest you go over and check it out, especially the earlier portions. It looks like it's been running for 1 hour and 36 minutes so far. So he's out there, on the Masquerade Tour is what they're calling it. And they started out a little bit slow, but they finally got it going. And I'm glad to see him doing this. And I'm absolutely blown away that they let him get away with this, at the White House of all places, or, kind of right across from the White House. Absolutely incredible. All right. So let's see. Let me see where I want to go here from this. All right.
It's tough. This was mesmerizing. It was hard to get ready for the show and pull away from this to get ready for the show.
Yeah.
He really does. I mean, he's got a nice right in front of the White House and a lot of charisma, getting a lot of people there. It takes a lot of nerve to do it. And he's a special person to, again, address and answer just the bravery of standing up in front of a group of people you don't know and telling them the truth. I mean, hats off to him. Had a hard time, again, focusing on what we were going to do tonight and pulling away from it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, all right. So what I wanted to talk about this week, guys. Now, you guys asked me, or last time we kind of took a vote, and you wanted to learn more about, kind of the nuts and bolts of how things work, and, more specifically attuned to the flat Earth model. Well, so I thought that would be a really great idea because, ultimately I would like to, come up with the model and actually be able to present a model that is viable and that is, functional for the flat Earth. Now, whether or not anybody accepts it, that doesn't really matter because, it can't be any worse than the globe as far as I'm concerned, because there's so many problems with the globe. It's utterly ridiculous. So I'm not even going to try to compete with the globe, but it is amazing how much stuff, new information is coming out. And specifically, I am referring to this channel called EWAR, or EWAR. Now, this guy just kind of came out of absolutely nowhere. And he had uploaded, I think it was a 7-part series. Yeah, 7-part series. And I think, yeah, now he has he has a total of 8 videos on his channel now. And this, for 5.5, 6 hours, something like that, is absolutely the most mesmerizing stuff I have seen in a long, long time. It kind of reminds me of when the Russian guy came out with the no trees on flat Earth type thing. And, he kind of comes out and just bowls you over with that kind of information. And it's really absolutely amazing. And this is, kind of what I mean when I talk about, the apocalypse and the revelation of this knowledge. And the thing that I really liked about it, well, there are lots of things I really liked about this guy and his presentations, is that almost everything he covered was a subject matter of, fairly high, importance to me anyway, that I've been covering on Globebusters for the last 6 years. And I just thought it was incredible to see this guy come out and do this. Literally it's a 6-hour stream, and I don't know how long it took. I don't even know how long he was, out before, all this was released. I do know that this particular channel here was just started like 2 days ago, because apparently YouTube already took down his other channel. So they obviously don't like what this guy has to say too much, but yeah, like I said, it's fascinating. And if you have not seen this, it'll be in the show notes for sure, but it's EWAR. And lots of people have mirrored it with all 7 parts, and he's apparently going to be doing more. And Dave Weiss kind of discovered him, and bam, just came out of nowhere, and absolutely mind-boggling stuff. So
I was watching it earlier. It's just visually stunning as well. I mean, if nothing else, he covers some fantastic topics and gives you a real in-depth, because my problem was always, but they're made of stone, these buildings. How do they conduct electricity? But he covered that and covered it well, I thought. But the visualization in it, it's just fantastic. Loved it. Yeah,
it really is. So yeah. So the what I wanted to do today then is, there are obviously the 7 parts to it, and I wanted to focus today specifically on part 4. And the reason I want to focus on part 4 is because it's kind of right up our alley with what we've been talking about as far as the luminiferous ether and, how things manifest. If you've been listening to us on this channel, you probably know that, we've talked quite a bit about the ether, and, the fact that it absolutely positively does exist. There's no doubt about this. Physicists know it. Einstein knew it. You're going to see some quotes from Albert Einstein in here that are absolutely mind-boggling, that, he's basically saying, hey, without the ether, nothing could work. And of course, Tesla knew that. And, people were just all over this until Einstein decided, well, since the ether is standing in the way of proving the Earth is going around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour because they're getting a null result, they better abolish the ether. And he did it mathematically, but he did it very reluctantly, because even he knew full well that the ether positively, absolutely existed. So that's where I want to start off in that. And I also want to say that, another thing that really surprised me about this is there is another truther called the Truth Seeker 69. Jen, you guys may know her. And she has been doing like some videos, and I thought they were kind of crazy, in as far as she was covering material that she was talking about how cities looked like PC boards or motherboards, right, on a computer. And I was just looking at that going, wow, that's really getting out there and really reaching, right? But when you start realizing what this guy is saying, and you start understanding what the elites know, and the fact that, our history has been completely hidden from us, and we know absolutely nothing about it. It's all an absolute lie. Nothing that we've ever been told is accurate. And, we're starting to discover that a lot of, with a lot of the information about Tartaria and the mud floods and, whatever you think of that, it doesn't really matter, because what we are absolutely finding out is that, this Antiquitech, as Martin Liedtke calls it, is all around us. It's all over the place, and it leaves a lot of clues, right? So, one of the things that this covers is that information. So I want to start out with a part of this. And let me actually go here. Yeah, I think this is a good part. And he's gonna talk for a minute about the luminiferous ether, and then I'm gonna kind of interject. And if you guys want to say anything, just go ahead and start talking. But I'm gonna let him kind of explain the ether and where this is coming from, and then I'm gonna show you some other ways that we've made these structural matter structures, back to the ether. We've tied it back to the ether. So let me go ahead and start this, and let's listen to this for a few minutes, and we will kick it off. So here we go.
Although the official scientists designate the ionosphere as an atmospheric layer, it is actually an ethereal layer. Ether is the fabric or element that carries electromagnetism. It connects everything in our realm. It is the fabric that makes the sun and moon and their concentric journey above our disk possible in the first place. Ether is the mysterious fifth element. It connects everything electromagnetically through vibrational energy. It is the glue, the web, the driving force behind absolutely everything. The four other elements, air, fire, water, and earth, only exist because of the ether.
Now, guys, obviously I have to make the comment that people are going to say, well, those aren't elements. And we are talking more of the esoteric type of elements, right? Not the modern day scientific type of chemistry or what most people think of as the elements. This is more the older description, and again, we find out that the esoteric views on things, the reason they're kept esoteric and they're kept hidden, is because there is so much truth to them. And it's absolutely amazing. So let's continue on.
They are expressions of ether's vibrations. Cymatics is a good example of ether's presence. The frequencies fed through the Chladni plate make the sand or salt form precise and complex geometric shapes. The higher the frequency, the more complex the geometric pattern. But what is the conduit that takes the frequency's vibrations and allows the sand to take such shape? That is the ether at work. That's why we see fruits and vegetables that closely resemble cymatic patterns. It is the ether at work. All matter is ethereal, and the shape and form of that matter are different expressions of the ether, determined by frequency and vibration. Ether is the bridge between electromagnetic frequency and vibrational energy and the form of matter itself. You could call it the Holy Spirit of God.
Okay. So, that is really well put, because what he's saying then is like, we try and imagine where, matter comes from. Of course, mainstream science would tell you that nothing exploded and turned into everything. And, as crazy as that is, it's actually quite a bit simpler than that. And again, this goes back to the luminiferous ether. So what is the luminiferous ether? And of course, we talked about this quite a bit before, but essentially it is this kind of background base element that is at the bottom floor of creation for everything, all things physical, all things non-physical, seems to rise out of the luminiferous ether. And it's interesting because the ether, has different modalities. You've heard us talk about, how ether could be expressed in one way as a dielectric or an electrical components, or it can be expressed in a magnetic type of component, or it can be expressed gravitationally, right? So there's different ways that the ether is actually expressed, and the interesting thing about it is that it's expressed both in the physical and non-physical. Well, what do I mean by that? It's like, okay, so if you have a magnet, okay, or an electromagnetic field, you could go into a vacuum chamber, right, and completely evacuate it from, all the air, try and take out as much matter as possible, which of course it's impossible to take out all physical matter, but they can get it pretty close, 10 to the negative 8 torr or something like that. I think they can probably get, and maybe even a little bit lower than that in some places. But the bottom line is that essentially, if you evacuate a chamber out of everything, all matter, well, would you be able to transmit a radio wave through it? And the answer to that is yes, you would be able to, because the electromagnetic emanations from a radio or light or anything like that do not require any physical matter to propagate. Again, when we talk about the speed of light, it's actually a rate of induction that is stimulating the ether itself. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, was it last week or 2 weeks ago that we covered this, and we were talking about the fluidic nature of magnetism, right? You guys remember that? And it is amazing when you think about, we had, what was her name? Fractal Woman. Fractal Woman was demonstrating the fluidic nature of of magnetism. And it was really cool because, she was showing direct analogs with rotating water and how it would cause, things to attract to each other and repel from each other. And let me see if I still have that up. I think I do. Let's see. Or do I? I may not have it up. Let me bring it up really quick. Let's see. I thought I had it.
That was an awesome demonstration, though, of magnetism. Like you said, that was one of the clearest, most comprehensible ways of visualizing magnetism and showing it.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Mm.
So, all right. So what is magnetism? So, basically, okay, so here we had this, and she's talking about
but then they quickly come back together.
What they're doing is they're spinning these things, and what it's doing is it's spinning and causing vortexes in the water, right? And it causes these things to attract to each other and then, move away from each other. And hopefully, if you guys saw this on the show a couple weeks ago, you'll already understand, where we're at with that.
Attract each other.
So let's actually kill her audio in the background. But the idea is that the ether, or the water in this pool, is representing the luminiferous ether, right? The background, what this guy is talking about. And it behaves like a fluid. So it has a fluidic behavior, and she can, kind of replicate the behavior of magnets and stuff like that. Well, okay, so getting back to where I was going with this is if we take an electromagnetic emanation like on a two-way radio and we broadcast through a vacuum chamber, well, it's sending out a wave, right? It says that, there's a RF wave, and it could be oscillating at let's say 144 megahertz, right? Which means 144 million times per second. It's changing. But the question is what exactly is it waving, right? And the answer to that is the background medium. It is the luminiferous ether. And again, you don't have to have anything physical to be able to propagate light or electromagnetic radiation like radio waves or anything like that. Now, on the other hand, in another modality of the luminiferous ether, you have the electrostatic side of it, right? Which deals with electric charge. Well, we're all very familiar with what electric charge is all about. And what's going on there is if you were to take an electric charge and put it in a vacuum chamber and take out all of the matter, would you be able to get a charge to propagate? And the answer to that is no, because in order for a charge to propagate, you actually have to have physical matter for it to charge or give a charge potential to. Okay. So that's one very distinct difference that is two different modalities of the luminiferous ether, right? You have the electromagnetic radiation, you have the electrostatic radiation, and of course, in gravity, we talked about how this applies to gravity, and that's not a real popular subject, but you know what? You're going to have to get used to it, guys, because the downward accelerative force is there, whether you like it or not. And, that's not the subject of today's talk, but it is there. And it is also absolutely another modality of the ether. Right. So now Zach did a video on this, and you actually talked about, was it Walter Lewin that was talking about the difference of electrostatic and electromagnetic radiation, Zach?
Yeah. Electrostatic isn't so much moving. That's why they call it static. Whereas in the electromagnetic, there has to be a movement of an electric charge, something with an electrical charge in it.
Yeah, to be able to be able to physically move it.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Bob,
yeah.
Do you know why they call it the luminiferous ether? Why they concentrate on? Luminiferous is light producing. Do you know why they concentrate on calling it light producing ether over anything else that it produces?
Yep, Cami does. Go for it, Cami.
I do. With it, they did it because they were learning between the longitudinal and the transverse waves, and saying that they pretty much separated the transverse and longitudinal, and said that our atmosphere carries one group, but the other group we don't. It carries the light, and they called the light in the EM spectrum the light, and so the ether was luminiferous ether because the light and those waves were carried by it. So all it was like the background field, or what, again, the medium to call. That's all it's ever been. And in physics, for the group that they take, no matter what, as soon as you get into wave theory, you're getting into perturbation of fields, and a field needs to be perturbated. In other words, if something is being excited, what is being excited? What is the field that is? So you can't have a wave theory and take away the field, which Einstein did with relativity, but they've had to build it back up, and right now it's called the Higgs field.
Gotcha.
So it's still
or the quantum field, or a million other names.
Or a million other names. They are, and again, getting into it, but again, as soon as you have something being perturbated or waving, the issue is what is it? And right now, in order to keep the spinning, rotating ball going through space and having tests that show up the way they are with no movement, the only way you can explain why we have no movement is to throw relativity in there. And the only way you can have relativity is to abolish the ether. So they, lock themselves in a circle jerk.
Yeah, exactly. and they describe light as a wave, and it's like, well, no, a wave isn't what something is, it's what something does.
Something does. It's a verb.
So that's right. So when light is a wave and you're waving light, what does that mean? What is it that's waving? Well, again, it's this background luminiferous ether, and it's the way that it's waving, so to speak, is when it is stimulated or perturbated. Okay, depending on the frequency of that stimulation, two things will happen. It will enter an energetic state, and it will also start to take a physical form. All right. So that's one thing that, it's literally kind of like a magical thing, but it's something that is detectable. In fact, it's the very thing that that I measured the 15 degrees per hour, right? When I was measuring that absolutely was what the fiber optic gyro was measuring. because the luminiferous ether, as it rotates around the Earth, rotates at about that speed. It's not precisely that, because it's changing at different elevations above the ground, but it does propagate vortexually, okay? And when it is perturbated, depending on how it's perturbated, it will manifest or become a modality of energy or form or both, right? So, and this is something that science just has a really hard time explaining. They can't, because everything to them is quantum and little bitty particles, and they can't explain anything without saying, well, if you cut this up, then you got a little bitty, even a smaller particle, and even a smaller particle. And to them, everything has to be these teeny tiny particles, right down to, what we're calling charge particles, like electrons and protons and neutrons, right? And even those are not particles, again, so much as they are specific frequencies of stimulus for the luminiferous ether, okay? So when we talk about, again, cymatics, now you guys are all familiar with cymatics, and I'll back this up just a little bit, but we've seen these patterns in cymatics, right, that he's got here. And it's absolutely amazing because you can do this in 3-dimension or 2-dimension, but all of these patterns here are created simply by putting a specific frequency, and you can take like a flat plate and put some like Lyco powder, something like that. That's kind of like a talcum powder. You can put it on there and vibrate it at specific frequencies, and it will magically, right, create these beautiful, beautiful sacred geometric patterns. And of course, they call them sacred geometric patterns because they come from basically what's called the 5 Platonic solids. And there are 5, actually there's 6, but basically there's 5 Platonic solids. And when you take those and you fractalize them with different combinations of frequency, different types of stimulation, or you have more than one signal source, then you start to get more and more complex patterns. And the other thing that happens is the higher the frequency goes as far as the stimulation, the more complex the patterns become. So think about this for a second.
Add in?
Sure.
Can I add in a little bit too, Heiner? And this is when you hit the beautiful notes. This is when the notes resonate or, again, come together and make a harmonic. The other thing that can happen between these beautiful patterns is you can have a total mess of noise where, again, they do not resonate and they do not go into step. And so that you can throw in there too, as far as those are your low places in your resonance.
On the plutonic solids, are any of these shapes a sphere?
That's questionable. That depends on where you go. So let's go to images. Let's bring them up here so we can show everybody.
Your answer to that is pretty much when you put them all together, you will again match in the perfect spherical
if you square the
geometry,
circle or circle the square, right, then yes. But
exactly.
Besides that,
but not this way.
No. The platonic
so
solids.
Nothing grows in a spherical pattern. Nothing is actually spherical at its base thing that we can see.
Building block.
Yeah.
And the way that we do the building blocks, when you're looking at what you have on this screen right now, your tetrahedron, your cube, your octahedron, your icosahedron, and your dodecahedron, I want you to think in a way that, like when we've discussed perfect cleavage before, like where something breaks, if you think of wood and breaking along the grain, you can kind of tell what things are assembled by as far as their building blocks by the way that they exhibit the cleavage, that you would have different points, again, along different, if you build something with a bunch of cubes, you're going to have a different line, a different cleavage angle and line that you can cut across, or that the optics in that go through. And so these different lines and that, again, they carry through to the whole pattern. And when you get into, again, working with the actual materials, you'll see that those little building pieces, when you say, are they built up little BBs compared to these shapes? No, they're not. Your closest thing to that is being totally unorganized, like lava or things that are amorphous that do not have the crystalline structure or the alignment to them in which case they don't have the building block. That would be the closest, unorganized would be the opposite of this, not a sphere.
And the other thing too with these shapes, they're all sort of derivatives out of the sacred geometry of those, the flower of life, or the seed of life as well. So that's where you get the circles that intersect. Really built on that, the two circles intersecting, and then from there it just repeats.
Pisces. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the mother of all shapes.
Yeah, exactly. And the sphere, it ain't one of them, but of course, modern science, like everything, they tell us, well, everything's circular because gravity pulls everything into a ball. It's like, no, it doesn't. What about these gas clouds? Why aren't they being pulled into balls? Why is that not happening? Why are we not actually actively witnessing any of this? Because we're not. And we never have. And that's the thing that, if you are a baller and you're out there and you're, saying this to yourself, but we know that everything pulls itself into a ball form, there's no proof of it. Absolutely none.
But don't you think that that's possibly derived from lifelong propaganda of being told that atoms have a nucleus and spinning balls, electrons, protons, and everything around them? Everything on a micro scale is like a solar system, or not even a solar system, because that's meant to be flat, but it's ball shaped, which of course there's no evidence for whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of that is from indoctrination, but the reality is somebody asked a minute ago, can you prove any of this? And it's like, yes, we can. In fact, Cymatics is an absolutely beautiful, you can demonstrate it in 3 dimensions, in 2 dimensions. And it is absolutely amazing what can be done just by using simple tones. And the higher the frequency, the more beautiful the tones are. Now, another thing, or the patterns are, another thing that's really amazing about it is if you look at things like the solfeggio scale of music, right? These are the frequencies of these tones are very, aesthetically very pleasing, right? They're not only
resonant.
Yeah, they're resonant. They're not only beautiful to look at, but when you listen to them, they feel good. They sound good. They are pleasing to the eye. They're pleasing to the ear. You get a good vibe from them, right? So, and it's kind of like, when you talk about some guy that comes up to you and he's really creepy and you go, wow, that guy just really gave me some bad vibes, right? Well, you really are telling the truth, because what they're doing is, where they are at is they are vibrating in a discordant way from where you are, and you sense that. And of course, again, modern science would never want you to understand that or get that. But, that is the reality. We are vibrational creatures. We are energetic creatures. And it all starts with the luminiferous ether. And this is how things manifest. And all of the solids, everything that we consider matter, can be broken down into these 5 platonic solids. And that's pretty amazing. And it's also pretty simple. And it's a lot easier to understand, really, because you can demonstrate it. Than to listen to some, quack scientist say, whoa, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, nothing exploded into everything, and now here you are, right? It's ludicrous.
And then you have the 5 solids that also sort of match up to the, the 5 elements as well. So that there's a bit of a correspondence there.
Yeah. Well, you'll find a lot of things that correspond when you get into the esoteric realms. And of course, again, people don't like to do that, either because, well, maybe their religion told them, well, that's satanic or whatever. Of course, the real reason that the elite don't want you meddling in this or getting into this is because this is where the true nature of reality, comes out of, is what would be considered the occult, right? And it's just information. What you do with it, of course, is a totally different thing. You could take this information, which we're giving here, and you could manufacture something that would, be a health benefit to people, or you could turn it into a weapon and kill people, So, it is what it is. So you just got to go there. Oops, hang on a second. Got a troll in the chat. Got to get rid of him. Okay. Oops. All right. Okay. So anyway, let's get back to what he was talking about here. Now that we've taken a hell of a detour, but that's okay. And where were we? Okay, so we'll go back to where he was starting and talking about the luminiferous ether. And again, you can make certain vibrations. Oh, and by the way, the guy that originally came out with the study of cymatics was a guy named Hans Jenny, right? Hans Jenny. And some of the things that he vibrated out of lycopatter were absolutely amazing. And not only did he make them static, but like he would vibrate things and make them look like a circulatory system, or a heart beating or anything like that. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. In fact, you know what? I think I want to show you that.
Has anyone here actually built or tried this out for themselves? Because this is something I think I might try.
Oh yeah. I've done it with a signal generator. And here we go. Here's Bringing Life to Matter. This is an absolutely excellent video. This is like one of the very first ones on the subject. So again, here we have him just vibrating lyco pattern on a plate.
A sonorous we change to a higher note and see a rather more complicated figure.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it, Bob.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Why are you not
We're
seeing?
watching you search up there. We're watching you put in Hans Jenny.
Oh, that's so weird. Oh, you know what? It doesn't capture that. That's weird. All right, hang on just a second. Let me drop the screen share and reshare it.
Hey, Bobo, could we do something like this with that RCA crowbar generator that Jana had donated to the lab?
You
Remember
can.
that old antique?
You can, but it's pointless because you can get signal generators for your PC and just hook it up to your PC, your microphone output.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All you need is a plate and some fine powder, isn't it? Or sand.
Yeah, lycopowder. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay,
we can
cool.
now.
All right. So here it is, and he's just raising the frequency, and as you can see, it's two-dimensional, but it's changing patterns, and it does it right before your eyes. This is absolutely astounding. And again, this frequency is so high, you can almost... Go ahead, John.
I wonder if you had some sort of a three-dimensional matrix to do this sort of demonstration, and if it would manifest in a three-dimensional sort of way.
The answer is yes.
I bet you it would.
It does.
Yes.
It does. There's a ton of them. There's a ton of three-dimensional demonstrations.
Figure,
Look at this thing.
Likewise on a steel
Looks
plate,
like writing.
is also
Looks like a dragonfly.
vibration.
Yeah.
The exciting crystal is attached to the upper corner of the plate.
So what they're doing there is
lycopodium.
he's taking
Lycopodium moves to the center of the field.
He's taking a combination of two different frequencies, two or more frequencies, and of course making it more complex.
Each material has its
And
own
now it's
special way of
modulating, so
behaving.
it'll actually start looking like a circulatory system or something like that. So when you think about...
Looks like... Sorry. Looks
That's
like
okay.
Aboriginal art, quite a lot of it.
Lycopodium alone.
It could be. You'd be surprised what they can do with a didgeridoo. In fact, a didgeridoo,
Transition to
they
mobile
put a
flowing
cloth over the top of a didgeridoo, and then they put some stuff on the top of it, and it'll vibrate it out of the didgeridoo, and it'll make all kinds of cool
and
patterns too. That's
back
one way to
again
do
the
it.
figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But oh God, what was I going to say?
The sonorous figures represent stationary.
Sorry, threw you offline there.
Yeah, you did. Crap. What was it?
I've got a quote here. This is from Nikola Tesla. He said, "All perceptible matter comes from a primary substance or tenuity beyond conception, filling all space, the akasha or luminiferous ether, which is acted upon by the life-giving prana or creative force, calling into existence in never-ending cycles all things and phenomenon." End quote.
Bullseye.
Wow.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Einstein, believe it or not, was 100% on board with that. So it just makes you wonder, what kind of pressure he was under to mathematically, eliminate the ether when he knew damn well it existed. And you're going to hear some really
Look at the
interesting
solar
quotes.
system. Wow.
Yeah.
You're right. Kind of does look like a circulatory system.
Mm-hmm.
How
So
it
we
just moves everything through. It's constantly in motion, but it keeps that same shape. But the fine particles are always moving. They're never stagnant. I noticed in some of them, it almost looked like it was Hebrew writing. How it was.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Zach. It was Sanskrit. I mean, it really looked like Sanskrit to Hebrew. Yes.
I mean, this could also correspond to, your heart frequency and how that's actually interacting with other elements in your body as well. So, it generates a charge and no doubt a frequency. And in the old Chinese sort of medicine, they used to be able to test the heart or listen for all the different types of pulses. And there was nearly about 30 different types. So they were actually, able to understand the different frequencies of the heart and find problems that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, the Heart Math Institute, there's, that's a whole nother show on that. But you're right, Lucas. It's amazing because everything, it comes back to, like fractal patterns, but it always comes back to sacred geometry, fractal patterns, and cymatics. And as we just saw a minute ago, I mean, that looked like a moving skeletal system. I mean, look at that. That's absolutely amazing. It looks like a spine or something like that. And so, I know what I was going to say now. So basically when God talks about, speaking things into existence, right? God's voice, when God speaks, it's basically a complex tone. It's a complex series of vibrations that literally bring forth our manifestation, our reality out of the luminiferous ether. And everything is vibrationally based. Okay. So the Bible tells us that. We can see it with cymatic experimentation. I mean, how much proof do we need? There's a ton of proof on this stuff, guys. And again, it's funny because the ballers will ask you questions like, "Oh, what proof do you got?" And it's like, "Are you kidding? We got nothing but proof. What proof do you have that the Big Bang actually happened?" I mean, it's patently absurd. I was listening to some ballers the other day, talk about, you got to have, it's got to get down to a certain level of cooling before this and this can take place. And I'm just sitting there going, do you even hear yourself? You're just making this story up as you go. It's unbelievable. And then
I want to know. Yeah, I want to know what proof they have that there's burning fireballs hundreds of thousands of miles away that sends light in little packets of particles that when they hit our atmosphere magically turn into waves. And they can prove that.
Yeah.
Because the waves can't travel in the vacuum of space. And so I don't understand where we need the proof when their own stuff proves that they're wrong. It's just that, the proof is on our side.
This stuff looks like the images we see of stars out of focus, as people claim, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you back it up like 5 seconds, there's something that looked like Saturn in the middle there with a ring around it.
Yeah.
There.
Well, and that's exactly right. And that's what's going on when we look at it with like a P900. And I said this like years ago on a Globebusters show. The digital processing of the Nikon or the new digital cameras are actually allowing us to see more of what's going on with them vibrationally, because they're not just little twinkling lights. There is an absolute modulated pattern to them. Now people will say, "Oh, that's just blooming." It's like, no, it's much more than blooming. And these things sometimes can be in perfect focus. I mean, you've seen them. And not only that, it's like, well, if this is blooming, then why are the same stars giving off the same energetic signatures no matter who takes pictures of them, right? And they're all very uniquely different, again and again and again.
And it's pretty easy to get the camera in focus because all you've got to do is focus on the moon or the planet or whatever, and you are then in focus. It's infinity, isn't it, at that point?
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, there is some blooming because usually there's, autofocus problems. But the crazy thing about it is that, the stars are not millions and trillions and billions of light years away or years away or miles away, whatever. They're close. And that's why we can zoom in on them. And, people think that telescopes have these, unbelievable zoom rates, and they simply don't. In fact, most people have no idea that all of the magnification that takes place in a telescope takes place in that little bitty eyepiece, right? What's the big piece of glass in the front for? That's for light gathering, right? That's what does that.
Gathering the light. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember when I was looking at the Isle of Portland from 30 miles away, and I'd brought with me a telescope and set it up. And I brought with me a very cheap 20 times zoom camera, little Canon camera. And I also brought a camcorder with me. And the worst resolution was the telescope. I got better images of both of the camera and the camcorder than the telescope.
Yeah, my P900, was easily getting as good a resolution on planets and stars as my Meade LX200, 10-inch LX200 Meade. Absolutely every bit as good. And the P1000 would probably do even a little bit better job. And like I said, I think the digital processing in it actually gives us an advantage because it actually allows us to see the cymatics that are taking place. So think about this for a second, guys. If everything is cymatics and we're seeing these energetic patterns in the stars, right, that break down, when you look at some of them, all of them seem to be looking like cymatic or platonic solids, right, or some form or variation of them, right? And again, if we are under a matrix of energetic points, right, and this all forms a matrix of energy that we're inside of, well, doesn't it make sense then that these energies that are coming from the stars and the moving planets and stuff like that would actually have energetic changes on things we experience around us, right? Because they're not billions and billions and billions of light years away. They're close. They're right here, 100, 1,000 miles. I don't know, but they're very, very close. They're very, very local. That energy is enough to affect us. I mean, anybody that's ever, paid attention on a full moon, and you've watched people go completely ballistic on full moons, it happens. Or there are specific celestial alignments that seem to cause earthquakes, or all kinds of stuff like that are tied to events that go on in the stars. Believe it or not, the financial markets, and a lot of billionaires know this, the financial markets are very, very closely related to sun activity. And that's something that Cami has followed for a long, long time, that the markets follow that energetic pattern.
And I've said it before that on cruise ships and stuff, some of them used to have signs on the decks saying, "Don't fall asleep in a full moon," or under the moonlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of trippy. So, all right. So let's go back and let's let him. I'm going to go back to, I think we left off about here. So let's go back and listen to him, and I will interject some more as we go on. So let's continue on.
In the firmament beyond.
Oh, first of all, are you guys seeing the right screen? Are you seeing the screen?
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm hearing it.
Okay. And you're seeing the stars and all that? Okay. Here we go.
Yep.
I'm getting a bit.
Although the official
garbled audio.
science.
I don't know if it's just me or
You're getting what, John?
the audio is a bit jarbled for you, Bob, and for what you're broadcasting. I don't know if maybe it's just me or.
I don't know. How do I sound to you guys?
No, I can hear him just fine. So
Yeah, I think it might be your end, John.
It's just
There
on
you
my
have
end.
it.
Okay.
And Bob, I'll be bringing coffee, so that is
Oh,
coming,
yay.
sweetie.
Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, let's continue on.
Scientists designate the ionosphere as an atmospheric layer. It is actually an ethereal layer. Ether is the fabric or element that carries electromagnetism. It connects everything in our realm. It is the fabric that makes the sun and moon and their concentric journey above our disk possible in the first place. Ether is the mysterious fifth element. It connects everything electromagnetically through vibrational energy. It is the glue, the web, the driving force behind absolutely everything. The four other elements, air, fire, water, and earth,
I did back
only
it back a
exist
little bit too
because
far.
of the
Sorry,
ether.
guys.
They are expressions of ether's vibrations. Cymatics is a good example of ether's presence. The frequencies fed through the Chladni plate make the sand or salt form precise and complex geometric shapes. The higher the frequency, the more complex the geometric pattern. But what is the conduit that takes the frequency's vibrations and allows the sand to take such shape? That is the ether at work. That's why we see fruits and vegetables that closely resemble cymatic patterns. It is the ether at work. All matter is ethereal, and the shape and form of that matter are different expressions of the ether, determined by frequency and vibration.
That's right. And not only fruits and vegetables, but plants do it. One of the things about the Platonic solids is they go by a ratio called the Fibonacci ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, right? 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and on, right? So you basically take the two numbers before,
13,
add them together.
21. Yep.
Right. So it goes on. And if you look at the proportions of your body and every organ in your body, you'll find that they all conform to those specifications. Isn't that interesting, right? So, and again, it all comes back to this basic, mathematical pattern that, like Lucas said, you could start with maybe 2 circles, get a vesica Pisces, and then go from there, taking the geometry forward, and you come up with some of the most amazing things. And you guys, I'm sure, have heard of Dr.
This is not taught.
No.
This is not taught anywhere. I remember a conversation between 2 Yale professors. One he was the head of biology, speaking to another head of some other field. And he was just sitting there saying, he had just heard about the Fibonacci sequence. And he's like, okay, so they've known about this for how long? And I'm just hearing about this now? I mean, all life, all biology, follows these patterns, and they've known about it. Why aren't they teaching this to everybody? Why isn't this taught?
It's taught in my homeschool, Zach.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, again,
it was known, even the Chinese acupuncture system is based on fire. It's finding these ratios between points in the body as well. So that's a sort of energetic modality and a healing modality that works on fire as well. So it was known a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, that's the interesting thing also about this series, guys. And when you start actually getting into the series, you find that it seems like our future is in the past, because you are not going to believe how this technology is manifest today, or was manifest, and how it's been put out of commission today. And again, a lot of people have been watching Mud Floods and Antiquitech and stuff like that, and it's been met with a lot of opposition. But I'll tell you, when this guy came out with the magnetron, I looked at that and just went, holy cow, that is absolutely no doubt what is going on, and the mechanism to move energy. And you're going to see all that. It's absolutely amazing.
So did I.
Yeah. So let's continue on.
Ether is the bridge between electromagnetic frequency and vibrational energy and the form of matter itself. You could call it the Holy Spirit of God. The historical and scientific discourse of ether is a deliberately manipulated one. The enemy introduced the truth only to discredit and subsequently bury it. Some of the alleged figures of the past have written on ether. The so-called Aristotle called it the fifth element. James Clerk Maxwell, the so-called father of electromagnetism, spoke of the ether, stating, "In several parts of this treatise, an attempt has been made to explain electromagnetic phenomena by means of mechanical action, transmitted from one body to another by means of a medium occupying the space between them."
Yep. No, James Clerk Maxwell was absolutely one of the fathers of modern day electrical engineering theory, and beyond, honestly, because, like I said, once Einstein took over, things really started devolving quick. Anything that would come out that would defy what they were teaching was, of course, considered pseudoscience right away. They wouldn't allow patents. Stuff like, the Joseph Newman machine. If you guys have been watching Globebusters, the Joseph Newman machine was a prime example of that. And that went national. They had congressmen and senators that were pushing to get this thing patented for this guy, which would have given us all free energy. And they couldn't do it and ultimately the patent office said, well, it came down from somebody much higher, right? It's like, who is higher than, supposedly our structure of government? Well, it's the people that run the government. And it's no secret that this technology has been hidden from us for a long time. And here we are in the age of revelation, and it's all being revealed, here for the apocalypse.
Apocalypse now.
Yep. So let's continue.
The undulatory theory of light also assumes the existence of a medium. We have now to show that the properties of the electromagnetic medium are identical with those of the luminiferous medium. The medium he refers to here is the ether. Albert Einstein and others successfully solidified the heliocentric model through fraudulent schools of scientific thought. But even Einstein could not deny the presence of ether. According to the general theory of relativity, space is endowed with physical qualities. In this sense, therefore, there exists an ether. According to the general theory of relativity, space without ether is unthinkable. For in such space there would not only be no propagation of light, but also no possibility of existence for the standards of space and time, measuring rods and clocks, nor therefore any space-time intervals in the physical sense.
Now, if you guys listen to that, Albert Einstein said that, right? And, general relativity defies all of that, or says that it must be there. And so he had to bring out special relativity, right, to essentially eliminate it. Absolutely unbelievable that you can get away with this doublespeak, right? They're telling you, well, nothing can exist without it, but it didn't fit our paradigm, so we had to get rid of it. And they're exactly telling us that. The ether is real. It is demonstrable. It is measurable. It is malleable. It's incredible.
Not only that, it has to be there. It has to be there.
It has to be there.
Yeah.
It either
Have
has
you guys heard Ken Wheeler's theory on what matter is? How all matter is just condensed ether, condensed light. Ether
charge
being
potential, yeah.
verticated at, such extremes that it becomes dense.
Yeah,
It's
actually.
the alignment of it is the way it aligns.
Yeah, and it's
makes
weird
sense.
because to me, it almost sounded counterintuitive to me, because really the denser the matter, the higher frequency it's actually oscillating at. So that's kind of like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But when you think about it, it actually does make sense. But it's just another modality of the ether, which can be either physical or non-physical. And the problem with today's world is we cannot deal with the non-physical. We cannot go there in science. If you can't bean count it, it doesn't exist, regardless of how much evidence there is to the contrary. And there is a ton of it to the contrary. They know it. We know it. And, the only people that seem to carry that torch are like the NASA fanboys, or the people that know full well if they go against their training and say something counter to what, they were told to regurgitate in school, that well, they're not going to have a job anymore, which sucks, but that is the kind of way the world works. But let's continue on.
Even contemporary scientists, under the spell of heliocentrism, admit it is nonsensical to deny ether's existence. Today, the vacuum is recognized as a rich physical medium. A general theory of the vacuum is thus a theory of everything, a universal theory. It would be appropriate to call the vacuum ether once again. Returning to the ethereal ionosphere. As I said, this layer of ether above our heads is a constant sea of electromagnetism, and is responsible for the colored plasma above that we call the sky. The source of its electromagnetism is the sun. It is because of this ionized layer that we get ionospheric lightning in the form of sprites, which in turn influence the thunderstorms below.
Right. And remember what we told you about the sprites and the elves. There's something that happens that's very, very interesting. Not only is there this two-sided, characteristic to lightning where you have cloud to ground discharges, but you also have these upward discharges, which are called sprites and elves. And ironically, they all seem to discharge up and flatten out right at about 62 miles, right? And of course, 62 miles is where so many things happen, supposedly that, it shouldn't be happening at all. There shouldn't be anything up there at 62 miles. And yet we see sprites and elves discharge, flatten out at that elevation. We see observatories fire 45-watt lasers at what is called the sodium layer, right? Which is at 62 miles, supposedly. And what can they do when they do that? Well, when they fire a laser at this alleged sodium layer that's at 62 miles, they can create artificial stars that literally have enough brightness that they can calibrate and take out any atmospheric distortions. Now, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. What would be up at 62 miles? Why would there be a layer of sodium that is so palatable, that is so viscous, right? That you can literally illuminate it with the laser beam. That's insane. It's just insane, guys. So there's a lot of things that are going on up there. And that's why, I've said a million times that I believe is the lower limit of the firmament. I don't think anybody can go any higher than that. And when you do, it seems like what happens is there is an energetic kind of disturbance that looks like water being disturbed. Crazy stuff. So anyway, let's continue.
Well, yeah, hold on.
An ion is a part of...
Go for it.
After Picard went up into the atmosphere, and went even higher than he wanted to go, he came right back down and started studying submarines. Things that had to go through high pressure systems. Super high pressure.
I didn't know that, really.
Yeah.
And then you got the Hennessy advert where you got Picard in the ball and it crashes through a glass ceiling. Remember
and then
that?
It's out to be water up there, yeah. It's like going through water when he hits the ceiling.
Rubbing our nose in it, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Always. Well, and again, that's one of their rules. They have to put it out there right in front of our face. And, it's amazing. Speaking of that, when Austin was kind of touring around DC, I mean, it's pathetic how many naked babies they have all over the place in DC. I mean, they just hang it right out there for everybody to see. It's really disgusting. But yet that's the way they operate. They show it to you and act like it doesn't mean anything, or it's wacky old tradition that they're just, I don't even know what anybody would say about that, but they always have some ridiculous explanation for, these, gargoyles at places like Denver International Airport, which I used to work there. It's like, why would you want gargoyles in a baggage claim area in an airport?
Well, and cathedrals all around Europe. I was dragged around Europe with my dad, going to every cathedral, and there are the gargoyles are the most grotesque thing you can have, and they've got them lining the the roofs of these so-called holy places and places of worship and, you know, meant to be God and love and light and everything. And then you've got these sort of hellhounds and things hanging off the edge. It's something very weird.
Yeah, it really is. It's insane. But anyway, he's about to go talk about an ion as a particle. I would kind of correct that and say, yeah, it's a particle, but more accurately, it's a particle that has taken on a charge potential. Okay, because you can have different types of charged particles. So an ion isn't one specific thing, right? But so that's all I want to say about that. Let's continue on.
Atom or molecule with a net electrical charge. Electricity is a continuous flow of ions. The electrolytes in our body are ionized. Everything is connected by electromagnetism and the ether. Our highly developed and sophisticated historical ancestors not only understood the workings of the ionosphere and the ether, but they had developed methods to masterfully harvest it as a fuel to power the entire Earth. And while the exact process by which they were able to extract the ether is deliberately hidden from us and remains unknown, the structural remains that humanity has since repurposed and reused as architecture offer us many clues as to how it all worked. The evidence is everywhere for those with eyes to see. And once you see it, it becomes so glaringly obvious that you'll kick yourself for never noticing in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of like once you realize that the Earth is not a globe, you know, when we thought that, we're like, how the hell did we ever believe that, right? This is the same story. I mean, this architecture is literally everywhere. You know, I've always wondered about it. It's like, my God, you know, hundreds of years ago, how did they have such fantastic architecture and the building techniques that they must have had? You know, it's like we can't replicate anything like that today, right?
And let alone replicating it, we're pulling it down.
Yeah.
Systematically destroying these buildings deliberately.
Yes.
They have a hard time pulling it down too. That's right. You know, it's funny because I remember going to school. I remember asking specifically, you know, why don't we harness lightning, right? Like the electricity found in lightning. And the answer that I got from teachers growing up was always, you know, not satisfactory, but it was good enough, I guess. But it was something along the lines of, well, it's static electricity and you can't harness that. It's just, you know, for whatever reason, I don't even remember why they tell you that, but it seems as if they were harnessing the that natural energy that is released in lightning. Right? I wouldn't say that it's harnessing lightning bolts, but it's funny because do you guys remember ever asking that question in school? Like, why
Absolutely.
don't we use the lightning for free energy?
I did, and they said, well, you've got too much power and you can't store it and all this sort of stuff. So. That's what they told me.
Dr. Frankenstein did it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You know, you can't store it, you know, whatever. It's like ridiculous. And today, and what they tell you today, because we actually did a show on this, John, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were talking about the modern techniques that people are sending up balloons, right? And they're putting these long tethers on the bottom of them, electrostatic tethers. And this, of course, is what led me on to finding the spider video and finding out that, oh, you know what? Nature does this. Spiders are actually, you know, dropping a silk into the atmosphere and then applying a charge to it from their body. And they're able to go up and down, control, you know, basically where they're able to fly. And they don't even have wings, right? They're one of the best aviators on the planet. Absolutely amazing, right? So
I've been kind of testing that, Bob. I'll have, you know, I'm always out in the garden or outside. I'll have little bugs come and land on me. And I noticed this when I was younger. They always try to get to the highest point, like on your hand, you know, they're always trying to get to the most potential, to that point. And I noticed that if I put my hand down and my elbow up, they start trying to climb up my elbow to my elbow. Even through all that hair and everything, they painstakingly they'll start. And then I turn my hand around and I let them take the short path, and they'll crawl right up my hand again to the tip of my finger, and then they fly off once they get to that tip. It's not usually until they get to that tip do they even start flapping their wings and fly. It's like they know there's not enough energy yet built up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like when the spiders, well, I forgot what they called it, but when they raise their abdomen.
Ballooning?
Ballooning.
Well, before they do the ballooning, but there's something that they called it, but whatever. They're literally sensing the electric charge in the air, right? With the little hairs on their legs or whatever. And so they raise their abdomen, and the hairs go up, and they obviously can determine, what the charge level is there, and then they let loose with the silk thread, and bam, off they go. Absolutely amazing. And of course, NASA claims to do the same things with satellites, right? So I'm sure they're probably doing it with balloons, but they say there's even video of it, right? The one infamous video where the tether broke, right? And it looks like there's all these little weird creatures swimming around it. But they said that's what they were trying to do, right? Was to get it going on the satellite. But I can believe
off the shuttle, I think.
Yeah, it was. But I can absolutely believe that would work, because it does work in nature. And if you imitate nature, like so many great, physicists and scientists have actually figured out, you can discover the secrets to a lot of things. And of course, these are the very things that they don't want out there, and they will cover up, just like what's going on here. So getting back to this, it turns out that, this Antiquitech, as Martin Leakey has called it, is basically using a lot of what they say you need today to go up and collect static electricity from the atmosphere. You need something that's kind of like a long tether, but it has to have a very sharp point on it, right? And that apparently makes it much more efficient when you have a very sharp point on it. So essentially what you're seeing here is, like, on the top of these buildings, they'll want to tell you they're weather vanes or something stupid like that. But essentially what these are is they form a network of electricity gathering, right? And it's amazing, because not only do they form this network to gather electricity, but then they have to move it around. Well, how the hell did they move it around? Now, that's the really surprising part. And that goes back to water, and why we see these moats and, star cities, star forts, things like that, very, very geometric places, and how it's laid out. Just like you look at Washington, D.C., and it's amazing the geometry that's being used there. And any place in antiquity, right? They have this amazing geometric layout of the buildings, of the canals, right? All of this is a way of moving this electricity around. And again, it's been right under our nose the whole flippin' time. Let's continue.
The matter is very complex, and it will take time to really flesh out. So for now, let's have a closer look at some of these structures, and I will introduce some basic concepts. As we continue our journey, we will explore everything in more detail. We see them everywhere. On top of all these magnificent structures, towers, spires, and pinnacles that rise into piercing antennas. It was through these complex antennas that the ether was harvested. You see, after the Great Reset of the 1800s, the enemy fractured the old world's unified understanding of God and created multiple religions to try and hide God and justify the existence of such grand and beautiful technological structures. And I know this may trigger some people, but stay with me, I will not let you down. But for now, it is critical to understand that a lot of the religious icons that adorn and make up these antennas were never indicators of different religions in the old world, nor were they intended to be. They signaled something else entirely. They are usually made from copper and gold. Both are excellent conductors of electricity. In many of the structures we call cathedrals, the symmetrical spikes on the pinnacles worked in a similar fashion, extracting ether from the ionosphere. Once harvested, the energy would inevitably have been drawn down into the top larger portion of these domed structures. When examining many of the interiors of these domes, we come to realize that they rely heavily on symmetrical ornamentation. This is achieved by indentation or cavities in the masonry. In the world of electromagnetism, a cavity resonator works through symmetry to produce oscillation or vibration of energetic particles. Symmetrical shapes force energetic particles or ions to vibrate in a constant manner. Is this why we see perfect symmetrical ornamentation within the ceiling of many domed structures? It no doubt sounds absurd, but the majority of these structures also feature a smaller type of cavity resonator, or what is more appropriately termed cavity magnetrons, that offer some clarity as to the real function of these structures.
Okay, now, before we go into the cavity magnetrons, I need to explain something to you. Just like you are able to vibrate like a lycopowder or some sort of substance, whether it be three-dimensional or two-dimensional, and vibrate it into a form. Likewise, all forms also have their own resonant frequency patterns. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Well, I think one of the simplest examples would be the opera singer and a wine glass, right? So essentially what the opera singer is doing is she sings a note and hits this resonant note, which is, well, and I'm going to play what resonance actually is, which is compatible, I should say, frequency-wise and energetically wise. And what it does is it literally shatters the glass because there's too much energy to maintain molecular cohesion, right, in the glass. So you have to understand a little bit about what resonance actually is. And I think what I'm going to do is I want to stop this here and let's go over to, where is it? Right here. And there's actually a couple of them. There's this one by Steve Mould, and this will be in the show notes also. It's called A Better Description of Resonance, which is really good. But I think for our purposes right here, I'm going to play this little 3-minute thing on resonance, just so you can kind of understand how physical forms can have frequencies that are resonant to them. So let's go ahead and play this really quick, and this will give you a quick explanation of matter resonance.
When any object composed of an elastic material is disturbed, it vibrates at its own distinct set of frequencies. Drop a wrench and a baseball bat on the floor, and you hear distinctly different sounds. Objects vibrate differently when they strike the floor. The natural frequency of an object is the frequency the object vibrates at when it is disturbed. Natural frequency depends on the elasticity and the shape of the object. The natural frequency of a small bell is higher than that of a big bell, and it rings at a higher pitch. Most things, planets, atoms, and almost everything in between, have elasticity and vibrate at one or more natural frequencies. A tuning fork by itself makes a faint sound. A tuning fork attached to a box is louder because the box is forced to vibrate. The box's larger surface sets more air in motion. A forced vibration occurs when an object is made to vibrate by another vibrating object that is nearby. The vibration of guitar strings would be almost inaudible if they weren't transmitted to the guitar's body. A piano has a soundboard that amplifies the piano's string vibration. Without the soundboard, the piano would make tiny plinking sounds. When the string is plucked, the wash tub is set into forced vibration and serves as a sounding board. If the frequency of forced vibrations matches an object's natural frequency, a phenomenon called resonance dramatically increases the amplitude. You pump your legs on a swing in rhythm with the swing's natural frequency. Timing is more important than the force you use. Even small pumps in rhythm with the swing can produce large amplitudes. If two tuning forks are adjusted to the same frequency, Striking one fork sets the other fork into vibration. Each compression of a sound wave gives the prong a tiny push. The frequency of these pushes matches the frequency of the fork, so the pushes increase the amplitude of the fork's vibration. If the forks are not adjusted for matching frequencies, the timing of the pushes will be off and resonance will not occur.
That would be
when you tune a
discordance.
radio, you're adjusting the natural frequency of its electronics to one of the many incoming signals. The radio resonates to the station with the same frequency and amplifies its signal. Resonance can have some very drastic effects. This is a good reason not to practice opera in the kitchen.
Okay, so again, the point of that was to kind of demonstrate to you that all form, anything that has a form whatsoever, has a natural set of resonant frequencies. And interestingly enough, when it comes to things like music, and like I said, when you write music and it's actually written and put in the solfeggio scale instead of the diatonic, it seems to have more of a soothing effect on people. It is supposedly, it will actually promote healing. Now, there are people out there that will disagree vehemently with this, but whatever. You take with it what you get. But the reality is that everything, no matter what form it is, will have a resonant frequency, or more likely frequencies. So what he's about to go back into here back on the other video is, as they are these magnetrons, basically what we're looking at is this is the resonant form for the Earth's natural magnetic field, right? And so what they're doing with these is they have essentially emulated the Earth's natural magnetic field. And by doing so, that gives them a physical resonant antenna, if you will, to collect this etheric energy. That's how it's done. And it's very, very simple. So just think of things, being resonant, compatible with each other, not discordant, but resonant. Just like when you have good feelings about somebody, well, that's a resonant type of feeling, or love is a resonant type of feeling. If somebody gives you the creeps, that's kind of discordant, things like that. So again, it's all about vibration and all about frequency. So that's why I wanted you to understand what resonance was, and that physical objects all have their own resonant frequencies. So let's continue on, unless there's any comments.
Hold on. Yeah. Whatever that tone was. Oh, sorry. Real quick, John. Whatever that tone was that guy just hit yelling.
Yeah.
Hank stared at me and his head cocked all sideways. And he was like, what is, and I have my headphones on, it's not like it's loud.
No, but it was very resonant to him.
Yeah, it was, it grabbed his attention big time. He looked at me like, Dad, what the hell are you doing? How'd you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was funny. That was wild.
Now, one thing that's interesting also is, people have made the comments about these big pipe organs that are in churches, right? And, they say that if you sit in the right places, Eric Dollard talked about this, you sit in the right place in one of these big churches with, that is basically cut out for resonant energy, because they weren't necessarily churches before, they were energy collectors, right? But they turned them into worship houses, and then they put these big pipe organs in them, and they would play music, and it was like your soul was vibrating. It was absolutely an amazing experience. And of course, anybody that has ever tuned a room acoustically understands exactly where I'm going with this, because that is what I'm talking about. That is resonance. That is tuning things. And what they're doing with these magnetrons is they are tuning them and getting them to a point where they are actually able to collect Earth's magnetic frequencies through architecture. Amazing, but it's been right in front of our face this whole time. And John, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think this shape of the magnetron that we're seeing here on the screen has anything to do with the quadrupole setup that Cami's been highlighting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I can tell you that right now for sure. All right, so let's continue on.
A cavity magnetron is a high-powered vacuum tube that generates microwaves using the interaction of a stream of ions with a magnetic field while in the cavity resonator. A magnetron operates through a hollowed, symmetrical vacuum.
Microwave ovens all have magnetrons in them.
It emits powerful microwaves that can act as a source of free energy. If you break the symmetry or close the vacuum, it no longer functions. But can you see the resemblance? These structures were never intended to hold glass within them. The controllers added the stained glass to the rose windows to shut off the magnetron's function. They closed out instruments of free energy. And they are everywhere in these structures.
It's absolutely amazing. And again, the archways. Now this is where it really gets crazy. The archways and how.
Interestingly, if you look at the geometry of entire sections of the structures themselves, then it becomes very evident that they functioned in their entirety like a cavity magnetron to generate energy. All cavity magnetrons consist of a central heated circular metal chamber in which the current leaves, and it's called a cathode. Look at that word, cathode. Does it remind you of another word? Cathedral. Cathode. Like with everything else, they corrupt the truth and hide things in plain sight. The controllers removed most of the cathodes integral to these cavity magnetrons, but there are some structures today in which you can see traces of the old cathodes still present. The heavy reliance on symmetry and cavities within these structures is not coincidental. The symmetrical ornamentation would have worked in a similar manner, causing the energetic particles to vibrate in a constant manner. The flowers within the squares can be understood as similar to acoustic resonators, working to vibrate the ions. It is here that the energy would have been continually manipulated into vibrational and electromagnetic energy of specific frequencies. Really look at these magnificent acoustic resonators. Could you craft one of these by hand today, and at such height? Why would an underdeveloped people spend so much of their time crafting such perfect symmetrical ornamentation, especially if it had no function and was purely aesthetic? They wouldn't. The cavity resonators and magnetrons would have had to have worked in partnership with a central engine or reactor contained within all these structures. Both resonator and reactor are interesting words. Just like the words conductor, generator, creator, and the name Mercator, they all contain the word Tor within their linguistic structure. They hold a linguistic memory and pay homage to the torus or toroidal field. The torus is the flow of electromagnetism. Without this flow of energy, there would be no life on Earth. No one can really know for sure, but some have suggested that the engine was probably similar to a fusion reactor. The traces of these engines can be found within all of the larger generators.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it's stuff like that that creeps me out when I think about what they're doing with CERN, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta wonder, because they know about this, and they're playing with it, and they know that it's virtually an unlimited source of power. You know, there's no limit to this, absolutely none. And so it's interesting that our forefathers, going back a couple of hundred years, they've been eliminating this technology. Now, what do they tell us about stuff like this? These old Antiquitech buildings, like at the World's Fairs, right? They say that they actually put these structures up just for the World's Fair, and then they tore them down, complete with the waterways and everything. And if you think about that, that is the most absurd thing ever. And why would anybody ever believe that? But then again, most people aren't thinking about it, critically, right? It's absolutely absurd to even think that. It's absurd to look at any of these structures, when basically what we're portrayed on TV, just 100 years ago, we're living in wooden shacks and driving horses around and, all this crazy stuff. And yet they've got this architecture that is absolutely out of this world. There's structures like the pyramids, Stonehenge, and, they're like, oh yeah, the Egyptians built them. But ironically, the Egyptians have never mentioned building the pyramids. And again, the pyramids mean fire in the middle, pyramid, fire in the middle, meaning that they are also a very specific type of energy collector. Was it about 4 years ago? I think, John, we did a show on pyramids, explaining, how they work, and some of the things that you can do with these pyramids is mind-boggling. We did some of the experiments. It's absolutely a complete trip. But again, here this information is right in front of our face the whole time, and we're just happy to accept the explanations that are given as long as we can, get home and watch TV, whatever. It's just crazy. So, all right. So let's see.
Did you ever see that documentary on the pyramids real quick? Those Russian scientists that after the USSR collapsed, they really didn't have any work because, the government was pretty much dissolved. So they all got together and started being able to study things they wanted to study. And they built a town. I think it's 25 miles northwest of Moscow. But it's all pyramids. And they've been studying these pyramids over a decade now. But every structure there is some type of pyramid. And they're doing all these studies there. And you don't really hear about this at all. But there are people out there that are still experimenting with these pyramids and hardcore right now.
Absolutely. They definitely are. And, it comes down to obviously shape, and the pyramids have a resonant shape. Gee, there's that resonant word again. And what's interesting is some of the things that have been photographed coming off the top of these pyramids are like energy beams coming straight up off of the top of them. They were built for a reason. It's interesting. The Egyptians never documented, that they ever even built them. So why they even got credited with building the pyramids, other than they're there, is beyond, anybody. What we find out in this video is a lot of these structures were built long before, when they said they were completed, hundreds of years, in fact, prior to that. And now when you start hearing the stories about, they used to have vehicles that ran completely on electricity and could go for hundreds of miles and, all this stuff over 100 years ago, well, all of a sudden it sound so impossible, right? But, people are just all too willing to say, well, that's just crackpot stuff, because my Chevy Blazer doesn't do that today. So there's no way that they did it 100 years ago. It's absurd.
I'd like to jump in a little bit on the etymology and go back to cathode a little bit, because he touched on it in the video about having the same etymology or the beginning as cathedral and cathode, and as you might think of Catholic or cather, catatonic even when you break it down on the things. But for those that don't know the etymology on it, it is from the Greek cathedus, which means literally kata, down, and hodus, away. So it means a way down. So a cathode is a way down. A cathedral, the way he's explaining it, would be a way to bring the energy down. And then you have to wonder, when they're applying it to the Catholic Church, what special meaning that might have, because they did not take, they did not bring the etymology over in the books from the other of CATH and Katha and Kata words, the way they did with cathedral and cathode. So I thought that was very interesting that they left that way down out of Catholic when it's obviously right there in front of you.
That's very interesting.
Well, when you got the Pope who looks like a Sith Lord from Star Wars, I think the meaning of what they're doing in the Catholic Church is pretty obvious. Undoubtedly one of the most corrupt, religious organizations ever. It's just absolutely amazing. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. To bring down. Very interesting. Okay.
Touching back on the pyramid connection, there's a lot of pyramids that we all know in Central America. The Mayan civilization, the Aztecs, they had pyramids that, well, I don't think they necessarily claim to have built them either, much like the Egyptians are credited with the pyramids that they don't claim to have built. But there are some connections there, whether it's, I know the dimensionally, like the sizes of the pyramids in Central America, there are some connections to the Great Pyramids in Giza. And, it does appear that these were some form of free energy devices. And, the question that I'm really struggling with here lately is, okay, so if they had the ability to harness or gather this free energy, what are the output devices? Like, what were they using this energy for? And I think that's one of the big mysteries. But, even as a globe earther, I was under the impression that there was a worldwide civilization that was in communication over continents and overseas that the standard narrative doesn't subscribe to. But it does appear that well, you could say the Romans, the Catholic Church, if you will, when they stumbled upon the Central American civilization, it does appear that they post haste just destroyed their language, and so today, like, we don't know exactly what their spoken language was or what all of their little glyphs and stuff mean. But, I think that's one of the big things that we're going to hopefully stumble upon and uncover in these revelations is, what were the output devices for these?
Well, that's a good question, John, because
yeah, right.
You think about it, and we look at some of these old houses, right? These castles that are huge. And of course, the typical peasant's house, had a wood burning stove, so they had, their heat provided that way. But how did they heat those massive castles? I don't think it was with the wood burning stove all over the place. I'm sure that there was some very advanced form of antiquitech that kept the climate just right. Of course, we'll never know that because that's all been taken away forever. But the fact is that, it's pretty clear that this energy generation, the way that they're doing it is very clear. And we have hints of it in today's technology with magnetrons and stuff like that. But when you look at the architecture and the structure of how all this is done, and guys, wait till you see the rest of this. If you haven't seen this entire series, when you go through this, it is absolutely going to melt your brain. This is something that I have tried to get in touch with this guy. I'm trying to get in touch with this guy and get him to come on Globebusters. I love to talk to him because it's like, I don't know. I mean, he absolutely nails so many things. And it's one of those things where it just resonates. A lot of this is absolutely accurate, what he's saying. And it's been absolutely in line with a lot of things that we've been told. Of course, one thing he does say absolutely is that these particular structures and the way that they're transferring the energy would never work on a ball, ever, ever, ever. And when it's explained, you absolutely understand why. So, but that'll be for another night, that we cover more of this, because we are going to go through this stuff, bit by bit. And, in the meantime, I think everybody really needs to kind of go through this and, get their take on it, because this is something that I think is going to be an amazing discussion, for this community.
The other thing, when you increase atmospheric charge, you also sort of increase the growth potential of things. I mean, this has sort of been shown in different farming techniques where they'll have high voltage sort of things hanging up in the greenhouses to increase the growth of plants and things like that. So that's one way that they can use like a higher atmospheric charge as well.
And magnetic things, I didn't know, but apparently you take a magnet, and if you put the south pole of a magnet in with plants, Cami,
Mm-hmm.
it causes them to grow better.
So we were
Right.
having some trouble. We were experimenting with that here, and other people have had very good luck with it, and we were not having as very good luck with that here with the plant growth. And so we are like testing. We test everything. We try not to say anything without testing it. So on our testing, we're doing it in the magnet. Maybe our magnets were too strong. We may have done overkill on it, but I do want to say that with the plants, we've had some mixed results on it.
I'm doing the same, Cami,
Yeah.
as well. I'm experimenting with it too, and I think the power of the magnet does have
Right.
quite significant influence on it.
And also the type of magnet you use. If you remember, again, I tell you natural magnetite will change between a conductor and an insulator with temperature, and that an alnico is an electrical conductor and neodymium is an electrical insulator. It could be that we're using different types of magnet. The ceramic magnet might be the way to go where a neodymium might, or vice, there could be some different properties. Each one of the different magnets that you look at has a different set of properties to it, add magnetics to it. Before we go into the buildings, though, that I know that we're going to go into, I want you guys all to keep this in the back of your mind. When Savage, I believe it was you that asked about the quadrupole, and does that have anything to do with Cami's quadrupole or what she's looking at the middle of the map or anything? What I want you to do when looking at the patterns is the one place he does not go in the videos at all. And this is the one thing that I think answers some of the question on why the globe lies so well is anybody that's familiar with me and my work will say that I've gone from the beginning that if we truly understood the way that the realm worked, we would understand free energy and they would not be able to slave us. If we understood, if they really told us the truth of how the realm worked, it would unlock free energy. And if you really were an evil force, and if you're in a place where free energy is given freely like this, and you were really going to, again, do the greatest amount of harm or evil, to me, it would be to destroy. Think about it. We have a natural grid. You think of things coming in veins of gold, veins of silver, diamonds, the way that they transfer heat, and that each element we have as a conductor, it has a permeability, it has a function to it. What we're doing is we're ripping apart the earth, tearing apart the grid in order to take away something that's given freely. And that, to me, if you were representing Satan or representing evil or wanted to really put a light into place that would really, really harm, like they said, the connection we had with the Earth before was probably much closer to something of Avatar and Gaia that's been taken away from us. And in fact, what we're doing is we're destroying it. We are destroying it to do this. So when you look at that quadrupole and the different things, what I noticed in the patterns of the buildings is you have the same patterns that you're doing your quadrupole with your four corners making your other, popping it out, and then your two pillars on the outside on a lot of the different buildings. You're going to have the same magnetic grid that we have on our Earth, really, in a lot of the buildings, or if not all of it, pieces of it. And some of the buildings that have, of course, the best representations are the Taj Mahal, the Vatican, and a lot of these buildings, when you look at them from the top and the angles and that, they really are doing the electromagnetic pattern on it. And again, they could be small generators. I do believe that these buildings were created with what he is saying in mind, that they were collecting energy and using it.
Yeah.
And it also seems to me that they use using electricity to actually build the buildings, like as in the stonework and stuff. So I have found a patent where they use basically an anode and cathode and electrolysis through the stone to actually, or through the soil to harden the soil. So, maybe they had a electrical way of actually building these structures as well, which would have taken a lot less time and a lot less energy.
Well, yeah, they could cast it, pour it in there, and then run the electricity through, and it hardened solid and there you
Bricks,
go.
yeah, bricks store energy, and bricks, you have a storage unit there to do it at. And you say, what's the capacity or what's the output? We can see a lot of the output in the buildings in the past generation, the different artifacts. The fact that we can't recreate what they did then is a little bit of a clue that they had better technology than we have, or we're working with something a little bit more precise than what we have now.
Yeah, and not only that, when you actually would, if you were able to do it this method, you would actually be able to dictate what elements are in those stones. So you'll be able to change the stone for a certain, function in a sense.
Absolutely.
Yep. Very interesting. So yeah, and so literally they're tearing apart the very grid, and this is amazing. It's like, if this is truly what we believe it is, and even if it wasn't, even if it was, a spinning ball flying through space, who in their right mind would want to tear it apart and ensure the extinction of every species on Earth, right? What's going on behind that? So obviously they know probably that there's much more to this, and there's a much bigger story going on. But boy, I'll tell you, the plot thickens, doesn't it? All right.
Well, I think people who think in centuries rather than decades would be, they think in ages rather than their lifetime. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking this guy sounds like a Londoner to me. So I don't know if that helps in getting him on the show or not, but.
I don't know. You know who he sounds like to me is he sounds like Dr. Zach. I mean, he has the exact same tone inflections and
similar,
very similar. It's like, he has a little deeper voice, but the way he pronounces his words and everything, he sounds just like Dr. Zach. So
I hear a Cockney myself, but yeah, we'll find out, because it would be really interesting to get his take on this and where he came from with this.
Yep. Well, we're trying. I'm trying to reach out to him. Dave Weiss is trying to reach out to him. Because this material is just absolutely magnificent. And like I said, it's not a far leap from what we've been covering already over the last 6 years. That's why, when I saw it, I was just mesmerized by it, and I keep watching it over and over and over again. It's like, wow, it's just so amazing.
It's a really good summary, and just the images are brilliant as far as I can tell. A picture speaks 1,000 words.
Yeah. It really does. And, basically the form of the magnet, and, you look at the magnetrons, and that's the next thing they're going to go into here is like, how we see these arch structures all over the place. And of course, arches, definitely, as far as weight bearing capability, arches are very, very strong. No doubt about that. So that's a good form, to build things in. But, I don't think anybody was expecting that, those arches were also kind of hiding horseshoe electromagnets, right? Or horseshoe magnet type of things to be able to harness this magnetic or etheric energy from the world, essentially.
Well, when you look at these places, when you go and see these cathedrals and stuff, I remember always thinking, why are they so ornate, so intricate, way up in the ceiling where no one's going to particularly see them or get close to them, and you can use binoculars on these things and pick out incredible detail that it's just mind-boggling, but it could be being explained as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the other thing that's interesting too is, oh, go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say it's so fascinating if you juxtapose that with today's construction techniques, which is you want to cut costs as much as possible, right? You want to do things as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible. Whereas back then, when they allegedly had such inferior technology and everything was done by slave labor and done by hand, and they just spared no expense. I mean, they went, balls to the wall on every little thing that they did. To me, that's really, that really is the most fascinating thing. If you just compare that with today, there's no comparison. There really isn't.
Yeah, today in our world of unbelievable technology and science, yay science, and all we can build is ticky-tack boxes that all look the same, and it's just crap, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tiki Tacky. And they're all made out of Tiki Tacky. I love that song. All right. Okay, so actually this is
beautiful. Look at that, by the way, the dome in the middle, your four corners, your quadruples again. Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this whole series is amazing, and we're, definitely right. I want to show one other video too, because before we, end the show, I want to show you guys, where is it? Not the primer, this. Okay. Well, actually, you guys, I'm sure have seen David Lapointe's The Primer Fields. That's really good material to review again, and I will put all those in the show links. But what I wanted you to see, when we were talking about waves, right? And the fluidic nature of the luminiferous ether, right? And how it's interesting how it spins, how it takes these half circle horseshoe type of patterns. And there's a thing that's actually called, oh gosh, what's the law? I'm trying to remember the name of the law. It's one of the ones that you use. What was the name of the coil that we used when we were trying to interfere with the ether?
A Helmholtz?
A Helmholtz, yeah. It's called Helmholtz's law, actually, that prohibits a vortex from changing, from completing a circle when it goes into different mediums. Now, the interesting thing is Physics Girl is going to demonstrate this in a water medium, but she says that it can't change mediums, but air is technically a fluid, right? So, but anyway, so let's watch this really quick, and I just want people to keep this in mind when we're thinking about vortexes and little waves and how they act, because one thing you're going to see is this thing propagate all the way across the pool. And the reason it does that is because vortexes become phase conjugate. In other words, they build on themselves. And this is another reason why I think that aircraft, the jet engines, once they get up to their cruise altitude and they hit a resonant frequency, that basically they don't use a whole lot of fuel. In fact, very, very little, because that vortex is almost self-sustaining. And you're going to see that in water right here. So let's let Physics Girl.
I was also thinking of eclipses, Bob. What if eclipses may not be so much a Polaroid distortion, but could be something like this? If there is waters above, what if there is something a vortex passing by the sun? Just a thought.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out the next eclipse when we throw Polaroid filters up there and rotate them and see if it is a Polaroid.
Yeah.
Well, we won't get it to. Yeah, we won't get it to react off of the actual what we're seeing here on the Polaroid filters. By the way, it won't do that. We would need to go to source on it. Remember on the model. That's why it worked on the
Polaroid distortion that's blocking that light source. Then all we would need to do is unpolarize it, right?
No, because
no matter what it is, you could block anything out, and then take the Polaroid filter and undo it.
No, because Zach, think about the second sun and how it worked on when we found the source, but it did not work on the one that we were seeing. You're going to have the exact.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying this is a Polaroid distortion that we're seeing in front of that light source. So we should be able to bring that light source behind the Polaroid distortion back in.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about it that.
That's a good thought.
That's a good one. That's a good thought.
Oh,
that's
boy.
a great thought,
Zach
I'm
using
sorry,
the old noggin.
I should have known if you thought about it that you were taking it a step further in that. That's great, Zach.
But of course, the
we'll soon
ballers
find out, won't we?
The ballers think we're all nuts anyway because we've identified a second sun. And guys, I'm still waiting for Wolfie 6020 to show us his polarized, to go and do the same thing that we did and show us a polarized source sun. Because
they might think we're all nuts, but we know they're nuts.
I am still thinking it through, Zach, and I don't think it's going to work until we find the source. I think if we found like we did with the source sun, I think we can get all the reactions on the other source, but I don't, unless because of the fact on the projection, I can show it to you. I can mock it up and show you. That'll be another show. I'm sorry, I'm off tangent.
No
I'm
worries.
thinking about. I'm taking Zach's and running
This
with
is
it.
this is how we roll around here. You know, we're always talking about these crazy ass ideas. It's great. All right, so let's watch this physics girl video and let's learn something about vortexes in fluids. Here we go.
Check this out. I'm just gonna drag this plate through the water in the pool. That's it. But look what forms. Perfect black circles on the bottom of the pool. And it's so weird. They don't die. They just keep going right next to each other. I sped this footage up because the circles took 3 minutes to cross the pool and didn't seem to be dying out. These got sharper as they went and made it all the way across. So cool. And look closer. You can see what's causing them. There are 2 almost unnoticeable dips in the surface of the water. Why don't they die out? And how do these dark spots form? And why do the dips move together? So many questions. Let's first look at what they are. When I dragged the plate through the water, you could see it forming little vortices like you get when you move a paddle through the water. A vortex is a gas or liquid moving in circles with what we call a vortex line going up through the circles. They are everywhere. Tornadoes, water flowing down the drain, hurricanes, or the movement of air over an airplane wing. Vortices often form when there's a difference in fluid speed, like fast wind moving over slow wind. As you move the plate forward, the water right next to the boundary moves with the plate because of friction. The water further out is not moving. It's that difference in velocity that causes a shear force and starts the water spinning. This is accentuated by the water in front of the plate being forced around the sides and the water behind the plate being sucked forward as the plate moves along. In this coherent vortex, our dips can travel much further across the pool than a ripple without dissipating. Why? The vortex wants to keep its angular momentum, so it continues spinning as it moves through the water and only loses some energy through friction to the surrounding stationary water. So what we appear to have here is 2 vortices moving across the pool, but it seems weird that they stay right together. Well, when we create this vortex, we're forcing water to move around the whole plate, not just on the surface of the water. Our vortex line is curved. We're creating a half vortex ring. You know, like a smoke ring, bubble ring, or even the plume rising up from an explosion, but half of that. These 2 dips on the water's surface are just the ends of the half ring. They're connected, and that's why they stay together. We can see this if we put a little food coloring into the ends. The food coloring travels from one end to the other and you can see the entire half ring. So cool! We just made a bubble ring without the bubble. This also tells you something interesting. The half ring is not a wave. A wave is a
Okay, guys, so what I want you to take away from that, let's back up just a little bit here. When she is showing...
Awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool? When she is showing this, when she puts the watercolor in, and you see basically the half circle or the horseshoe magnet, if you will. And remember, we're dealing with fluid dynamics here. This is the way the ether behaves, right? It behaves like a fluid, and this is what's going on. So when we start looking at how they're harvesting this stuff with these magnets and creating a resonant type of structure, then when we see things like, what is the arcdew, whatever it is, that gigantic structure that looks like a kind of an upside down magnet, that's precisely what it is. It is an energy collector, because what's happening is the ether is vortexing constantly. It's always in motion. I've measured it myself. I'm here to tell you, I haven't got an award for it. And
thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Arc de Triomphe, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, keep this in mind when we cover the magnetic part of that. Let's continue. Whoops.
Half ring. So cool. We just made a bubble ring without the bubble. This also tells you something interesting. The half ring is not a wave. A wave is a disturbance moving through a medium that transfers energy but doesn't transfer matter. When we added food coloring, we saw clearly that the vortex is transferring matter just like a smoke ring does. So sadly, it's not a wave. It's cooler than a wave. Now back to this half ring vortex. Isn't it weird? You've probably never seen half of a smoke ring before. Why? Well, according to Helmholtz's law, a vortex line cannot start or end in a fluid. So a vortex line either wants to close into a loop or end at a boundary. If you tried to cut a smoke ring in half, it would either break up or, even cooler, it would break up into 2 smaller smoke rings.
I don't know if that happens. It would be awesome.
Since the line can't end in the fluid, it ends at the surface. You almost never see these half vortices though, because they have to occur on the boundary of 2 media. If you can think of another way to make the entire half ring visible, like a smoke ring or a bubble ring, let me know. So now, why does our vortex create those cool dark spots?
Well, the balance between gravity, centripetal forces, and surface tension creates a funnel shape which acts like a lens.
Lenses often work by focusing light to a point, like this Fresnel lens, which can melt pennies in the sun, but I digress. Our vortex lenses focus the sunlight away from the center, like so, and you have a bright ring surrounding a dark circle. The ring highlights the dark circle further, and you get these incredibly clear black spots. So cool! Now I highly recommend trying this at home, especially if it's too cold to swim in the pool. Here are some tips. The water has to be very still. Even a small breeze makes it harder to create these. The sun has to be out, or it won't work. And you can try some other really cool things. Send your vortices at a wall. You'll see the dark spots spread out. Or try colliding 2 of them. Happy physicsing!
All right, there you go. So
The sun has to be up?
well, it makes it a little easier to see the dark spots in the vortex.
I'd like to try that under a full moon. See what happens then.
I'm sure it would work exactly the same way. The sun
Yeah,
is
think
purely
so.
for optics and lighting, so I don't think it has anything to do with the sun's energetics, but just simply for lighting.
Yeah.
So there you have it, guys. So we are obviously going to take this way into the next level, because at this point, guys, I don't really care what the Globers say. There's enough evidence in these videos alone, in addition to what we have covered, in addition to all of this architectural evidence and the fact that we know that we've been lied to since day one. It's time to put the pieces together, guys. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to figure out how this all works. And I think we got a good start on it today. What do you guys think?
Well, I think one thing's for sure is they're never going to tell us how this works. And another thing's for sure is absolutely, who cares what the Globers say, because they're not coming up with anything. They're not coming up with anything of any substance. We're going to have to find this out for ourselves and #test it.
Yepper. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're just seeing this stuff for the first time, and you go back and watch this, it's 5 hours long, 1 through 7, a little bit over that. But you'll see a lot of stuff in the beginning. He's talking about a lot of these old structures being, dug out of the earth, and these giant floods of just mud covering the whole, large portions of the earth. There's a lot of channel. If you're not, buying what this guy is selling, which I think he does a great job showing it. There's so many channels out there. John Levi, Martin Liedke is a great one. If you just type in mud flood, so much stuff is going to come up on this. It's coming out. This is the greatest apocalypse ever.
Yes, it is. Let's go. Let's just see what we got in mud flood. MUDFLOOD. Yeah, tons. That's one thing that they haven't changed their algorithm yet on.
Yep, and Tartaria, if you don't want to do it under that one, you're going to have a lot of information here. That one tells you Mudflood and Tartaria, so yeah.
Yep, but actually, where is Ryan? Let's see, I'm looking at a different thing here. Let me search for something really quick. Because there's a...
Stuff Beagle is also a good channel to check out too for mudflood stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah,
here we
there
go.
are a lot of people, running with it. There's a lot of people. Sorry, Bob.
Oh, no problem.
So,
I didn't...
Bob?
Yes, ma'am.
What if I'm reading from the chat. What if the cathedrals were actually the transmitters as opposed to receivers? Very fun to think about.
Yeah, that's... Well, because we're dealing with form resonance, and there's no reason why it can't be both. Honestly, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So that to me sounds very reasonable, and I'm sure there's other information we can dig up on it. And with the talented researchers we have in the flat Earth community, I'm sure other people have been thinking about this or going along with it, or whatever. But yeah, let's put our heads
it
together
is a
on this.
transmitter. Look at it. It's taking a certain frequency that's coming down, and it's changing it into a frequency. It's changing it into something we can then use.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's simply taking energy and transforming it into another type of energy.
Yep.
I mean,
Transformers.
I think he was thinking in terms of it sending signals out. Maybe I have that wrong, but possibly not only receiving but sending out. Go ahead.
Well, there was a theory that cathedrals and these structures were transmitting out in order to create well-being, for want of a better word. Good vibrations, basically.
He
Very
talks about a lady
Very
goes
nice.
into a lot of these cathedrals, and without any noise being made, it's putting off frequencies.
Oh yeah, that's why a lot of
resonant-
people.
Yeah.
Exactly, Zach. That's why a lot of people can go into a church or one of these beautiful old, architectures that are built to channel these type of energies, and they will literally get a calmness. They feel it. They feel the good vibrations, I guess. How else can you put it?
And that
Maybe
is
not
funny.
these days.
Yeah, been through Israel and have been in a lot of the different cathedrals and churches and different sites, and the feelings you get through different places. Each different place gives you a different tingle, one place I did, I started crying in a happy crying. Another place, I do know that when I was at supposedly the grotto where Jesus was born, it was interesting because I was there. I went down the steps, I crawled down like into the area, and it's like, this is so strange because I've felt so many magical, all kinds of energy in all of these places, and I don't feel anything at all down here. It's not, I don't know. It was weird. I was in a tour group, and it's like, are you sure this is the right spot? I think they have the spot wrong because I don't feel anything. And I did say that in tour group at that spot because of the feeling you do get in the cathedrals. It's hard to explain. It's so physical.
And of all the cathedrals I visited throughout Europe, I got the creeps as probably a 10-year-old boy. I got the creeps from nearly all of them. So I think they've been bastardized. Like you say, the stained glass windows, they're all connected with lead, which could be short-circuiting of
The energy,
whatever's going on here. Yeah.
I agree. They've made it very dark. Yep.
Yeah.
I totally agree, John. They've made it very dark, and they've taken something that was good that our ancestors had here, and they have do what they do. They make it very dark, very evil, and this is the cycle of things. And like I said, guys, we're going through a period now. Not only is this period of revelation or apocalypse going on now, but we can also expect some pretty crazy things to happen. And like I've said before, that alien invasion card is big time on the table. And I will just leave it at that.
It's coming. I've been bleating on about this for 15 years. It's coming.
Yep.
And I laugh every day because I want it to come. But 2 years ago, I wanted it to come because I thought it would be a real giggle and we could laugh at it. But seeing how many people are taken under the spell of this COVID nonsense, it scares the crap out of me now because they can say what the hell they want and 99% will believe it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, all right, guys. So that is where we're going to leave it for today. I will have Ryan Zim he's one of several people out there. YouTube also, I think, put all 7 episodes together. But I will put the original creators links in there for sure. Go by, show him some love, tell him what you think of this stuff, and I'm going to try very hard to get him on. They'll do our best, and see how that works. So there you have it. But yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. And isn't it interesting? And here we are back at this Antiquitech stuff, and I remember so many people were saying, oh, this mud flood and all this Antiquitech, it's stupid, it's crazy. It's like, no, it's not. And, I've just, people that go off claiming that, I really wonder about them. I really do. Even if you're a flat earther and you're sitting there going off like, they've taken away your birthday because you're claiming it's fraud. I'm sorry, but I got to look at you a little crazy if you're doing that, because there is so much evidence. It's like, what do you need, But whatever.
Well, even to dismiss the evidence, just because you think it sounds hokey or whatever, without investigating it and fully understanding it. If you'd investigate it and fully understand it and then dismiss it, then I've got a lot more respect for you. But this is such a new thing that, and I think Antiquitech is an absolutely perfectly coined word. I think that was Martin, but
yeah, it was Martin. Yep.
Yeah, he'd be another one to get on, possibly with this guy EWAR.
I think that would be
the other thing is, like,
suggestion.
for the mud flood stuff, like, you can just go to your towns and check. Like, I went to a small town near me, and I'm in Australia, so it's it's got about a 6,000 population, and there's mud flood buildings there. So it's everywhere, literally everywhere. So you can just go and check it out for yourself in your hometown.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Well, it encompasses so much too. I mean, there may be elements of it that you disagree with, but that doesn't mean that there are other elements that you won't completely jive with, right? I mean, there's just so much. It's pretty much everything under the sun can be sort of included in that category. But it's to me, it's fascinating, and I think maybe even just as big, if not potentially bigger than some of the revelations we've had in the flat Earth movement.
Yep.
Now, Bob, I shared my screen with you. Just, I don't know if you want to share it really quickly,
sure.
but
I will put it over. Hang on just a second. Let me switch to you. Bam, you are presenting.
Bam, and this is from like 6 years ago or whenever, when I started looking into it. One of the very first things, what you guys are looking at is you're looking at Solomon's Temple. And with the zero knowledge back there, and now I have been working and learning about magnets, electricity, and all of these things. But even with the zero knowledge back then as a girl, it was really hard to look at this diagram visually and not see a battery. I'm sorry, to look at that picture and not see a little battery there was, and then you start looking at the schematics of the old buildings. It gets pretty remarkable. But I can stop sharing now. But I just, again, I thought, do you see the battery in it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to
absolutely.
me, it was cute that it even had the little battery. As you look at it more, it gets more real in that. But just again, your at first glimpse, like you say, they like to put things right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, there's also the New Jerusalem, which is going to be very interesting to see how that pans out as well. So yeah, very cool. All right, so let me reshare back on mine.
Yeah, if you can stop my screen. I'm sorry, I don't see my option here.
No problem. I got it. Hang on just a second.
What are you referencing with the New Jerusalem thing?
Well, there's can you guys see my screen? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can see the start part. Yes.
Okay, cool. So, who is it? Not Alex.
West
I
Music
forgot his
Blaze
name.
and Kingdom and Judgment. It's Sean is his name.
Sean, that's right. Yeah, Sean and
Kingdom
West Blaze.
Context.
Mm-hmm.
And West Blaze and the group of them, which they're doing a fabulous job over there. I think Kingdom in Context. What is Sean's channel name? I watch it. I'm just not so good at that. But yes, they were working on building a model and putting in the New Jerusalem. So they've been focusing and throwing some questions our way, and back and forth on that.
Yeah, and Cami was talking to him about it, and she was kind of modeling it as part of the Sephiroth, right, or as a Sephiroth, and
right,
it's just interesting to see these ideas take form.
Because I know there's a well famous sort of song or anthem or whatever in the UK that talks about building a New Jerusalem in England. You know about that?
I don't know about that. I know that they believe that it was New Jerusalem was taken out. It's like a city in the heavens now, and it will come back and at the time and come back to earth is, I believe, there. So what is the building in? And I could have this a little bit wrong. This is out of the biblical, so anybody that wants to correct me. But they were also talking about the stones, and it had to do with something on the stones in the breastplate.
It's the song is, and in those fields of ancient times.
Oh, that, yeah.
That talks about that whole song is about rebuilding the New Jerusalem in England.
You know, the only place I know of that did Emerson, Lake and Palmer do that song, or is that like come from somewhere besides them?
I'm not sure. I'll look it up now.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but I know Emerson, Lake and Palmer sang it, and I used to really like an album called Brain Salad Surgery that they did, and I think that was one of the tracks in it. But anyway, I digress. So, all right, guys, let's wrap it up, and we will be back on Sunday for our season opener. And yeah, going to be having a presentation from Iru and, you know, some other surprises that are going to be going on, and we'll just see how that all works out. And I do, making some small changes to the show, hopefully make it a little bit better for everybody. And yeah, we'll see how that works out. And then the following Wednesday, I think we will continue on this series because I think this is going to be a lot of fun to go through this one. So there you have it. So
yep, I agree.
I think rather than go around to each and every one of you, is there anybody on the panel that has anything specifically that they want to share that they have coming up?
No, I just wanted to tell people June 10th, if you can, check out the eclipse. I know it's like northeastern United States, all the way up through Canada. This is actually a really weird one. It's actually crossing right where they say geographic north is. This eclipse is going right through the center from northeastern United States all the way up to like Siberia. It's just crossing right through the middle.
Wow. Very cool.
It's going to be a weird one.
Okay. Yeah. If you have a solar telescope, drop us an email and we'll tell you how to find the primary sun. Because I would love for somebody to see what they could pull off with that.
That would be fabulous. I'd like to drop in a save the date to everybody. For those that don't know, October 23rd and 24th is going to be Floctoberfest, and we are doing everything we can to make it as fun and fabulous as possible. This year it is in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is about 25 minutes away from where it's been the last couple of years in Greenville. So it will be in downtown Spartanburg. We are getting the tickets. When I say we, I mean Karen. She is amazing, absolutely amazing. She is getting the website up right now, and the tickets will soon be for sale. But definitely mark on your calendar, save the date, October 23rd and 24th.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it's going to be cool. I mean, the new place has a bowling alley, which is going to be really cool because that'll be fun. It's got a small 8-lane bowling alley, but we can bowl, and then they've got the upstairs and downstairs.
There's skee ball too.
Oh, and skee ball too, yeah.
My husband's such a nerd. No, it has a great conference room. It's got dining rooms. It's got lounges, and downstairs it does have skee ball and bowling, which does kind of make it fun for the real nerdlings in the group.
Yep, and it will
that would be me too.
And it will be more, as I understand it, it will be more back towards the traditional conference type of thing where there will be speakers. I will be doing a presentation for sure. Well, hopefully we can get the Globebusters in general there to do a presentation. And it'll be kind of a combination of the music and presentations because we have it for 2 days. We have the venue for 2 days. So it's going to be like a full-on Flat Earth conference, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So
Yeah, the way that we have it lined out right now is day one is speakers, strong speakers all day. We have my husband, we have Marty Leeds coming in confirmed. We're working on confirming some other people. Then we'll be getting together, possibly bowling, playing skee ball, or just drinking and having some chat and that in the evening. Plenty of places to hang out. And then the next day, we are getting together and we are doing musical and maybe having a little bit more speakers, but we're focusing the arts and that and having a different setup on the inside where we are hoping, perhaps ODD is on the invite list, but we're going to be doing some music. And the second day is more arts and music, and the first day is more intellectual and speakers. And the night in between, we have that place we can take it over and just have a wonderful transition. The hotels, there are 2 wonderful hotels. We're working on getting a group discount that are very reasonable and decent hotels that are within a block and a half. So a very comfortable walking distance. Really a great setup for this Flatopher Fest. Is going to be more of a hybrid festival and conference, and it's going to be better than we've ever done it. I mean, a lot of things are coming together for this, so I'm really, really excited. Save that date, October 23rd and 24th.
I'm jealous.
And Karen is working on getting some packages for the hotels, which she said are going to be a little bit cheaper than Greenville because it's a little bit of a smaller area. Spartanburg, it's growing, but it's not nearly as big as Greenville, so it should be a little bit more affordable for people to get accommodations. And if you can group up with other people, and get a few hotel rooms, you could probably even get it cheaper. So check out, what is it? FlatEarthFestivals.com.
Yep.
FlatEarthFestivals.com. I don't know if she does have it up yet because we are negotiating. And again, the hotels here are like wonderfully priced. Spartanburg downtown is a cute downtown area. It is a small city, so it has a very cute downtown that we're right in the middle of, with a little plaza and streets blocked off and arts and cultural centers. So it's the place to flat smack and to talk to people. What was also fun is when we were at the event, looking at the venue and falling in love with it, we noticed that everybody was outside with kids eating sundaes. It was a warm day, having pizza. And we did 360. There was at least 40 people. I would say between 40 and 60 people that I could see over a 2 to 3 block span. We did not see one person outside in a mask. Not one.
Yeah.
Not one.
People here in South Carolina don't like masks. So we got a cool state. And our governor doesn't like them either. So there you have it.
Spartanburg's a cool little town.
Yep. And let's see, somebody wanted to know about Lighthouse, an update on Lighthouse. Guys, I haven't heard anything about Lighthouse. The last I heard, they were saying June or July. But this will be the 3rd or 4th time that it's been delayed. So I do not know. Apparently they keep coming up against legal challenges. And that doesn't surprise me because Lord knows they do not want to have anybody launch a platform like that, which honestly, it's going to be really cool when they do it, because it's going to be a combination of, like a Facebook social media type with combined with videos like YouTube. And then what's the other one? The shopping and products and stuff like that. It's a fantastic idea, but there's a lot of little legal loopholes that have to be handled. And I understand it. They're working on it, and we'll see how it all comes together when they finally do launch it. And I wish them the best of luck with it. So there you have it.
Yeah, we are big fans of what they're doing and all the details. We had when they are up in there, we would like to work with them, and we certainly want to see them up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, guys, we're out of here. See you on Sunday, and thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully it's been interesting and entertaining for you. I will have the show links in probably within the next 30 minutes on the YouTube side, and then you can go and start watching these videos, because I guarantee you, once you start watching it, you will not want to stop, because these are fabulous. So there you go. So we'll see you on Sunday. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside.